So this is a brief presentation about this new idea that I have of Map of Salsa. And the point is for me to be able to more easily understand, remember, and remix different kinds of salsa combinations. This is just my the very first draft. So I look forward to any feedback and comments, and I will be making probably a second version of this presentation. I will begin by describing different holds or different positions that you and your partner could be in. So the most basic one is parallel hands. My left is holding her right and my right is holding her left. Now, if I let go of one hand, I can have two versions where my left is holding her right or my right is holding her left. Now, above this line are positions in which we are crossing hands in some ways. For example, handshake, we go for right to right or left to left. We can also hold both hands, in which case we have this LLRR. Now, L first means that my left hand will be above my right hand in this crossed hold, and RRLL means that my right hand will be above this crossed hold. So these are the basic ones. There are many more. I will just introduce you a couple of more positions. Don't want to overwhelm you, but away her is basically she's facing away from me, but both of our hands are to our sides, and I'm holding her left hand with my left, and my right hand is holding her right hand. The hammerlock is, as you can imagine, my left hand will be holding her right, my right will be holding her left, but her left hand is crossed behind her back, so that's why there's this small X that represents that her left hand is crossing behind her back, and that means my right hand is on her right hip. Tangled hold is very interesting because the way you get into it is you can start by parallel and then lifting both hands up and then giving lady a right turn, or you doing a right turn while holding both hands, so your hands get into this like a tangled position. You can see that still my left hand is holding her right, but they're tangled, like the hands are kind of like passing through like two loops. The L here, the first character L, represents that my left hand is above my right hand, and that same principle applies to this hold, LLRR. And on the right side of this line, you have holds that are more focused on when the right hand is more dominant. And in the middle, these two positions, they are symmetric, so that's why they're holding in the middle. So the point of having these moves is that now we will be able to draw arrows between them. So if I am in a particular position, then I make some kind of move with 1/8 count of beat of music. I may end up at the same position or in a different one, right? So what kind of moves we can do? Well, there's many, right? We can switch hand holds. We can do some kind of different hand play, such as hairbrush. We can do turns, etc., etc. Now, I want to focus on turns because turns are most interesting aspect of salsa, at least as far as this model that I'm building is concerned. Now, one type of turn is where we are turning together, meaning that we're not turning relative to each other, but we're both turning together at the same time. So for instance, crossbody lead would be an example of such turn, or if I do an open break and switch positions, in that case we're turning, but we're turning both at the same time. So it doesn't really affect our hold, right? No matter how our hands are tangled, I can still do a crossbody lead and I will end up in the same tangled position because we're not turning relative to each other. Now, the interesting turns from this perspective would be turns where one of us turning relative to another, meaning that in most likely in those kinds of turns we will be switching between these different holds. Excluding those together turns, there are 8 main kinds of turns that you can do in salsa. Now, this switching side, as you know, in the linear salsa, you always stay at the same direction, but you can switch sides between you and your partner. So if you do not switch sides with turns, basically either she will turn in front of you or you will turn in front of her, and you can either have your turn, her turn, to the left, to the right. And pay attention to the type of notation that I'm using for these turns. So HR, her right, HL, MR, ML, my left. Now, with the switching sides in salsa, she can either pass you on your left side or she can pass you on your right side. And if she passes you on your left, that is called a cross turn, right? It comes from the crossbody lead, but plus in addition to that, you do a turn. Now, inside turn is where girl is turning to the left, and outside turn is when a girl is turning to the right. So notice how I'm writing IL, which stands for inside turning left, or OR, which stands for outside turning right. Now, when it comes to girl turning and passing you on your right side, obviously you have to begin with an open break, and you can do enchufe, in which case she will be turning to the left. She will be passing you on your right side and she'll be turning to the left. That's how enchufes are normally defined. Now, I'm calling this enchufe L, which means like it's an enchufe with a left turn. Now, if she's passing me on my right and she's turning right, technically that should be called a reverse cross turn or cross reverse turn, something like that. But I like to call it enchufe R in order to preserve this nice symmetry that it's kind of like enchufe, but she's turning to the right. And enchufe means that she's passing on my right side. And I like the symmetry because there's 4 left turns, 4 right turns, and it's all nicely and neatly organized. Before I show you the fun stuff, the animation, I just want to teach you one last piece of notation, which is the symbols that represent the level of a hand while turning. So a hat represents that the hand is above the head. The plus means at the neck level, or this line down means at the level of a belly. So for instance, if I'm turning left with my both hands up above the head, then that would be written as turn ML and then this hat symbol. But if I'm turning her right with one hand above head but one at the belly, then that would be turn HR hat and then this line at the bottom. Onto the map of salsa, I added a couple of additional positions that I didn't show you before, and I've added these lines. And these lines, they represent a movement that happens with 8 counts of the salsa music. So I will first play you what this looks like, and then I will describe it step by step, and pay attention how the highlighted box is changing over time. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so we begin with inside left turn, but there's an early stop where she doesn't complete the turn, but instead we end up in this position where she's facing away from me. My right hand is holding her right hand, but her left hand is crossing in front of her body. So that's why there's this X here. So I'm then doing a right turn where one hand is above the head, the other one is at the level of the belly. And I continue this turn until the 8 counts are over, and now I'm in this hammerlock. So naturally I will do a hairbrush and then inside cross turn. So we end up left to left hold, because my right hand essentially I let go while I was doing a hairbrush. So now I just have a left hand, I do another hairbrush and reconnect, and so now we are in parallel hold. Easy. So another combination that I will show you first and then explain. Okay, my left turn, which takes me from LLRR. Notice how in this position, usually doing left turns is what works. Doing right turns, you can do it in some ways, but if you're gonna keep holding both hands with doing a right from this position, you will end up in some kind of weird tangled position. Like, if you know what you're doing, you can do it, but it's just kind of more caution. It's more natural to do left turns out of these, and it's more natural to do right turns out of this hold, RRLL. So I'm doing a left turn. So next is the reverse cross, or enchufe R. But I'm holding one hand down, which puts me into this hammerlock. You see my right is holding right, my left is holding her left, which is crossing behind her back. Now the next move... Alright, so this move is basically enchufe left. I'm just like basically turning her enchufe left, but it's just kind of stylized a little bit differently. And you can see at the bottom I have kind of a little more detailed instructions for this move. Alright, and another turn. This is, it's essentially her right turn with both hands up, but it's just stylized differently, where I turn first, then I go back. Just kind of fancier way of doing her right turn with both hands up, but right. And as expected, we end up in this LLRR, because from here, if you do right, usually you end up here. So the next move is not really a turn, but you do this switch of hands by making her hand kind of go in this half circle. So you end up switching position, not via turns, but via this hand play. And this is a demonstration of what happens if you do a right turn on LLRR, that you're gonna end up in some kind of weird position. So I'll play you a clip and explain later. Okay. So we're doing right turn and chufe right, or cross, reverse cross. You see how we end up in this like really weird position where both of her hands are crossing her body in this kind of unnatural way. She's like completely boxed in. My left hand is holding her left hand, but it's crossing her body, and my right hand is holding her right hand, which is again crossing her body. But I will release one hand and basically just do a right turn, and let's see. Okay, so we end up left to left. Now I will do switch hands. You see when I switch hands how I'm crossing this green barrier here, because I'm stepping down into this realm of parallel holds, from cross holds down to parallel holds. Alright, so that was a inside turn for her. Now I'm going to do basically a right turn for her now, just holding one hand. But this is again one of those stylized moves where it's a right turn, but it's a little more complicated, a little more stylized. So I turn away first, and then I turn back. There we go. And we end up back where we started. Now, from here, it's actually difficult to do enchufe. You have to kind of, well, you can still do it, but you have to, it makes sense to switch hands to hold her with your left. So step, and that's it. Thank you for watching. This is the end of the short presentation. I will make this tool available publicly so you can play around with this map of salsa, and I have a couple of other combinations that you can explore. But let me know what you think. I made this video specifically to ask for feedback, suggestions, comments, etc. So thank you for watching.